Inside the halls of San Diego State University lies a program dedicated to storytelling and pursuing the truth. Welcome to Where You At, a podcast that takes you inside the work of alumni for the School of Journalism and Media Studies at San Diego State. Our goal is to show the success of our alumni, inspire students with the stories, and connect students and alums on a pathway to journalism success. And now, here's your host, Josh Suchon.
This week on the Where You At podcast, we are remaining in America's finest city, and we are going down memory lane. We're going to do a lot of nostalgia this week. This should be a rad podcast. Our guest is John Toma. Now, by day, he works for a drug and alcohol testing company, but in his spare time, he writes for Substack. He makes YouTube videos. He creates content on social media. He is the author of an upcoming book called Nostalgia Nation, the definitive chronicle of growing up Gen X. He is a proud San Diego State alum. John, it is rad to meet you. Welcome to the Where You At podcast.
Hey, thank you so much. It's pretty rad to be on here. I appreciate it. I'm glad we connected, Josh, and super pumped. I am a very proud Aztec, and really glad to be here. Thank you so much for making time for me.
Yeah, so let's start with, again, this is not your full-time job. You already have one of those, but tell us about what inspired you to start posting on social media and start creating this 80s nostalgia content.
Yeah, that's a great question. So basically around 20, I've always been writing. Writing's been a passion of mine, and creating, short stories and things like that have always been a passion of my life. But sometime around 2020, when my fourth son was born, right around May 30th or so. I guess in the heat of, or I should say at the start of the pandemic, really, I decided that I was going to start journaling a lot of the things that I loved and that I have in my collection for my kids. That way they have a historical, archive of the things that I grew up with and I played with and things like that. I thought, hey, what better way to do it? I already had an Instagram account. I'd connected with a few folks. I was following a few accounts that were into nostalgia. And I thought, hey, you know what? Maybe I need to really dive into this, because I've got a pretty big comic book collection, baseball card collection, posters and toys and things like that I grew up with. And I thought, hey, this is going to be great. So I kicked off May 30th, like I said, early June. So I'm coming up on my 5th anniversary of this. And really the main idea was this. I've had a very long career in the same industry. I've been very, very fortunate and blessed to have that. My careers sometimes can be a little stressful, and I needed an outlet, a creative outlet. And so for me, it's sort of morphed into being able to not only enjoy something on the side and have a hobby, but also I was double dipping, because I could also create a really great archive for my kids and other people that were interested. Well, it ballooned into this thing where people were reaching out to me quite frequently and said, hey, I remember having this. Where did you get this? Where did you grow up? And we started having these shared memory experiences. And I thought, hey, there's something here. And my business brain was like, you know what? This could become something really great, especially in the sense that, not that I was thinking of it from a monetary standpoint, because I already have that covered with my career. But I was thinking of it more like, hey, if I really synthesize this could really impact a larger swath of people and connect and bring people together. And that's always been another passion of mine is community. So, that's really the start of it.
So when it comes to the various different platforms that you're using, did you start writing Substack? Did you start with the YouTube videos? Give us which led to which, and then how they kind of feed into each other.
Well, I started with Instagram. I spent quite a bit of time on Instagram, and I wanted to get Instagram right. I always felt like I wanted to get into YouTube and other things, and I've always had the passion to write a book, but my sole focus was, hey, I've got folks that are really drinking in and really enjoying the content that I'm creating on Instagram. So let me just do that really well. And ultimately, what ended up happening is TikTok was starting to come out and become very popular. Everyone was talking about faceless YouTube videos and how well you could do there and things like that. And I started I went in and I created a TikTok account. I created a YouTube account. I had an X account back at the time. Now, obviously Twitter, now X. But honestly, the really the most vibrant community I had was on Instagram. So I almost felt like I was very careful not to let these other platforms distract me all too much. And I stuck with Instagram. And what happened was Instagram sort of a beast, it can be good and it can be bad. So for anyone listening and thinks that, it's all roses, having a brand account on any platform, you're at the mercy of the platform's algorithms and just the policies and things like that. So let me be very clear. You have to be very careful not to use copyrighted materials and things like that. And if you're gonna do what I do, which is focus on nostalgia, I mean, a lot of that nostalgia that we took in was Saturday morning cartoons and things that have franchises and properties that have a copyright, that belong to someone else. So when you create content, it has to be unique, and you have to be educating whoever it is that's taking in that content to meet fair usage. And early on, it was a wild, wild west. I mean, there were a lot of accounts coming on that thought, okay, let's try this. We are also GenX or Gen Z or Zillennials or Zennials or Millennials that have nostalgia, and every one of our generations has that. But you have to do it in a way that does not compromise copyright, and you also have to be creative, and your content has to be unique. Otherwise, you're just going to flounder out there. Because I'll tell you this, there are what we call the COVID brands, the COVID accounts that came on and all jumped in and wanted to have a social media account during that period of time. And I'm not saying mine isn't. I just had the idea before that and just sort of steamrolled into the whole pandemic experience. So there are folks who came in, were there for a little while and left. And there are now folks still jumping in because they're looking for alternatives to opportunities out there, like careers. Their jobs are tough to find in some markets. So they think, being a content creator is a better way to go. So I know that's a mouthful, but I will tell you, I dipped my foot into every other platform, but I've always felt like go where the people are, go where your followers are, and stay there and do it really well. And now my YouTube is growing. I'm spending a little bit more time on long form content. I have a lot of love for Substack, obviously, and Substack's being used, just to let you know, and I'll finish this up. I'll let you get a word in. I just want to be helpful to as many people when it comes to if they want to create their own publication. I always felt like short form was never the full answer to my passion and what I wanted to achieve. I feel like the real folks, the realist that really love my sort of creativity and content are the same people that love books, that love less technology, that appreciate less technology, at least in their life, and they enjoy spending more time taking in information. They enjoy history. So Substack is my outlet for that, for long form writing, for really getting in depth on my passion.
I really enjoy the answer, and I think that that's useful for those who do want to write on the side, for those who are students and they want to get experience and they may not be able to get it from the way that you and I could when we were students. And so if they just start writing, they just start creating, they can come up with these things. So I think that's all really helpful. Let's rewind the clock to when you were a San Diego State student. You were an English major, you were a psychology minor. You did say earlier in this podcast that you've always enjoyed writing. Did you have goals of being some type of writer or journalist or in communications, or what did you think you wanted to do with your life when you were a freshman?
Yeah, that's great. Wow, having a flashback to that time. I almost didn't go to college. I was an athlete, and I thought my future was going to be sports. Then I started practicing with the SDSU basketball team, and at 6'1", even at that time, taking a shot. And I was a good basketball player. Don't get me wrong, I was also a football player. But 6'1", 170 pounds, instead of making 9 out of 10 shots, I was getting blocked, 6 times, 6 out of 10 times. And I thought, this isn't going to work. I was good, but I wasn't good enough to go and take it further in my basketball career. I tried football, and I thought, after taking 20, 30 hits, I just said, you know what? I'd like to not have any major injuries. And being a first generation immigrant to the US, I had an opportunity that my parents didn't have with their sacrifice coming overseas to the US. And I really wanted to focus on academics at that point. I had a really great friend. I'll give him a shout out. His name is Mark. And he was college bound. He came from a family that was educated. And I thought, let me try my hand at this. And he really pushed me and said, John, you're a good writer. You could really do this if you really put your head down and focus. And, I fell in love with history, with English literature. And so, and initially I thought, I want to try this psychology thing. So I started with psychology, and then I thought, I'm not sure I'm in love with this. I'm not sure I really am passionate about this as much as I thought. So I kept studying psychology, but I did a kind of a tangential maneuver. I call it an audible. And I decided I dropped into some English classes and some poetry, and I really loved it. And suddenly a lot of my grades were reflective of my right. They were like, hey, I really enjoy this. Keep going. Lo and behold, President's List. I started doing really, really well at my academics. I was writing all the time. I was creating some good short stories. Nothing profound, as they say. Back then, you look at your writing in the past and you kind of laugh at it. But it was incremental. It was getting better. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to be a professor, because I had a couple of really impressive professors at SDSU. And I really enjoyed. And I'm trying to think of one of my Professor Herman. He taught a lot of John Milton. So I studied Milton quite a bit there. He was fantastic. He was very difficult. I'm not sure if he's still around. All right. Professor Herman, if you're still around, you really pushed me, man. And then I had a great poetry teacher too, and just a great guy, former athlete. I'm not sure if he's still around. But anyway, professors at SDSU were wonderful. They pushed me. And then I thought, I'm going to be a professor. That's what I want to do. And then I went and taught high school for a few weeks during the go try to do that. And I was like, man, I hate teaching high school kids. They don't care. And so I was like, I'm done. I'm going to go do something else. And it just so happened that I had a connection that was doing sales, and said, you know what, John, I think you might like this. If you want to make some money, come out and check it out. And I went into substance abuse and safety and background checks and things like that. And I just fell in love with it. I started making very good money, and my whole path, my life kind of went in that trajectory. But I continued to finish my education because I felt like that was really important. And I wanted to be the first college graduate in my family. So that's really the direction I was going to go. I didn't think I was going to go into media or anything like that. I dropped into a few. I did elect some communications classes. I thought, maybe I'll try my hand at, maybe I want to be a reporter one day, not knowing the depths and the craziness of being a reporter and just that kind of lifestyle. And so I am very grateful in the path that my life took and the trajectory it took at that point. And I'll tell you something. Had it not, I'm not sure I would have developed all of the skill sets and all of the sales and marketing and the business knowledge that is absolutely necessary if you are going into any area or any line of media, including YouTube creation, content creation. I can't tell you how many really great creators I see out there that never really tie into brand deals or maybe pursue anything because they either lack the courage, potentially, maybe they just haven't had exposure to that, or they don't know how to put those pieces together and do the outreach and make the connections that are necessary. And thirdly, I would say they may not have the knowledge or the experience to craft a great sales pitch or a marketing pitch to get a brand to say, you know what, I'm going to buy into this, and I am going to let you create some content around this. And then guess what? I'm going to pay you for it. And that, I think, is huge.
Well, since this podcast is oftentimes about nostalgia, and that's what you focus on, why San Diego State? I've read that your family was originally in the Detroit, Michigan area, and they moved to San Diego. Was it always in the cards you were going to go to San Diego State? Tell us about why Montezuma Mesa.
Yeah, that's great. So I grew up in Detroit in the 80s. We came in from the Middle East. We're first generation. My family and I didn't speak a lick of English. And, growing up in the 80s, it was tough. It was very tough. I grew up off of 7 Mile Road there near State Fair area. It was very difficult. A lot of the audience might be familiar with that 8 Mile movie. I always joke like Eminem had it easy. And so there was no outlook on life. It was basically, we're going to live in Detroit and we're just going to do the best that we can. My father was single family income. He was working hard, paying back debt to come out to the United States. Ultimately, they made the best decision. They made two great decisions. We came to the United States, and the second decision is they decided to go west from Detroit. We came out in a camper van or like a motorhome to California in 1989. And we lived in that motorhome for almost a year. And anyway, I always knew that my life trajectory was going to be different. I just felt it. But it was about overcoming adversity, overcoming some challenges. Ultimately, what ended up happening is, like I said, I was telling you earlier, I didn't think I was going to go to college, but having the right people in your life, having the right friends is so crucial. And thank God that Mark was in my life, because my best friend, my childhood friend, I actually knew him since Detroit. He moved out to California first. And so we ended up connecting when I was out here. But ultimately, we decided, because I couldn't afford to pay for university, that I was going to go to junior college. So we started at Grossmont College, actually. And we went there for a little bit. And then Mark said, you know what, I think it's time for us to, get somewhere else. And we actually started one of the first clubs at Grossmont. So I got to learn how to start a club, which was pretty awesome. I went out, and initially I was going to consider going to UCSD, because he was going to go there. And this is a guy, a bioengineer, very smart guy. But I went to the campus and I thought, man, it's like a ghost town here. And it's a great looking campus, but I didn't feel any, John Muir College. I thought, oh, that's great. That's prestigious. Sounds great. But then I went to, I had an opportunity to go to Arizona State because I was in the field of track and field at Granite Hills. And Dartmouth was an option to some degree because of that field capabilities. But then I went to SDSU, and man, I loved the campus. I felt like a great energy there. And I just thought, man, this isn't too far from my parents too. So I could sort of figure this out financially. And I was working, I think at like Hollywood Video at the time, and putting VHS tapes and DVDs, on shelves and paying for school. So I thought, I can manage this. I could make this work. And I worked really hard. And then I just fell in love with San Diego State, man. The Commons area where I could eat and watch and observe people and study. And I ended up living on campus at Casa del Sol or whatever. I think maybe right down where the Aztec Center stadium was at the time. Had a lot of fun with the parties there, and just enjoyed Aztec life. It was awesome. Great people, wonderful professors. And I felt, this is it. I'm not going anywhere else. There's no leaving San Diego. It was going to be where I lived and where I pursued my academics. And to this day, I have a 16-year-old son. In fact, I was working out with him this morning. And I said, and I'm just so pumped that he's got the same opportunity to be an Aztec, hopefully.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start to get into this creation, because even though you were not a journalism major, even though you're not like a quote, like practicing journalist, you're using a lot of these journalism skills. Let's talk about some YouTube movies. When you go to put something together, we can use the 10 things you didn't know about Streets of Fire, because that got a lot of the views. If you think there's another one that you think would be better, but in terms of idea, filming, editing, post-production, different things, give us an understanding of what it takes to create a successful video.
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me tell you something. Content creation, video creation for YouTube is immensely rewarding, but it is also tremendously time-consuming and can be difficult. There are a lot of aspects to it. I was telling Tymok the other day, I don't know if you recognize that name, but he was in The Last Dragon. He was Bruce Leroy in The Last Dragon in 1985. I was interviewing him. I was chatting with him the other day. And first of all, it's a miracle that that films get made because there's so many people involved. Now, creating a YouTube video, it can be as challenging or as community driven or talent driven as you want it to be, or it can be a solo venture. And so, in that video, just to 10 things you didn't know about Streets of Fire, that video. So I'll just kind of run you through that. First of all, if you look at my channel is sort of a variety channel. It's not a how-to or a, cooking or, specifically, it's very much a nostalgia variety channel. So you're going to see interviews, you're going to see tributes, homages, those kind of things. And that video in particular is a tribute video to a film that I felt was very underrated, very underappreciated, and was directed by Walter Hill, the same guy who did The Warriors in 1979. And I'm a movie buff. Like, I grew up watching movies. And that's another part of shared nostalgia for all of us, Gen X kids. When I decided I was going to put that video together, first of all, you're almost also taking information from other creators. Like, there are other creators out there creating content like this. So you have to watch those videos and learn from them without being so consumed in your time of just watching videos that you can't be creative. That being said, I created the outline for my video. I created a script. I knew a script was going to be needed because I didn't want to say or make mistakes or do any or disrespect the film, because there's always going to be that 1 or 2% of people watching that are going to go in there and said, "Oh, you got this wrong," or "You forgot about this." So and even though I feel like my video, when my script was really good, and I would say it was 99% awesome, there's always someone who knows inside information or some particular information that comes in. But that's the beauty of it. I learn after posting a video a little bit more about the content that I've created. And if I want to create a future video to expand it and amend it, I do that. Now, a particular thing about that video, Josh, that you should know about. First of all, it takes about a couple hours to generate a script, right? To write your script. It takes, maybe 30 minutes or so to create the outline. Then you generate the script. Then you prepare all of your media, meaning all the images you're going to use, any video content. Then you're going to do a couple of takes, make sure that your equipment's working right. You've got the right stuff, Then you've got to look forward to post-production, which takes the longest amount of time if you're doing all this on your own, if you're not outsourcing it. And I know a lot of people ask me this question, but I have outsourced some things that I've needed some help with, maybe on some unique videos. But for the most part, 99% of the content I create is all done and created by me from start to finish. Now, how do I do that with a full-time career as a CRO of a company?
And 4 kids and a wife.
And 4 kids and a wife, exactly. I do that by compartmentalizing my content creation. I batch my content creation. So for those of you that may not be familiar with that word or that vernacular, I basically reserve a certain portion of my day, either in the evenings after my youngest go to bed, and then I might spend 30 minutes or 45 minutes working on a script on each day. Then on Saturday, I will work I always compartmentalize about 4 hours on a Saturday, doing the video, and leaving the editorial stuff to possibly a few days later or maybe the following week. So sometimes you won't see a video like my Toma interview. You won't see that for 2 to 3 weeks after I've already shot it, because I need to work on the post-production stuff. So in particular to that tribute video that you mentioned for Streets of Fire, I posted it, and here's the unique thing. That video got about 100,000 views in a year or something like that, or 70,000 views, something like that. But then Universal ended up sending me a message and saying, "Hey, you've used some footage in here that's a little bit too long. And we don't want that, because we want the people to go out and watch the documentary or whatever." So I wrote back and I said, "Hey," I negotiated with them. I said, "I got to keep some of it, because if I take the entire thing out, the whole video is going to be so poorly edited, people are going to complain." But guess what happened? Even then, they came back and said, "Well, you got to pull at least this much of the video out." So I had to go back in a year later, after I shot that video, and do some minor edits. And the video is not what it used to be, not the full video. So now it's really chopped up a little bit. And so now I have to go back, you guys, and re-edit and reshoot that video completely and probably post a new video with some different footage in order to put my original creation out there for everyone, even though it's got, I don't know, thousands of comments, over 100,000 views, all this stuff. I don't feel right putting out material that's only 80 or 90% right. I want to put out a new video and direct the audience back to that. So this is the kind of work that goes into this, and I'm sure that media personalities out there understand this very well. It's very tough.
Yes, I'm nodding my head a lot. John and I've never met before this podcast, but I feel such a kinship because I'm just a couple years older than you. As I was reading your book, the number of stories that you had, I'm like, yep, that was the same thing, even though I grew up on the other side of the country. Favorite TV shows, movies, but also someone who writes a Substack and who has a YouTube channel. And just the idea of like, what's going to take off? Like sometimes something gets 1,000 views in a couple of days, and sometimes something gets 100 views, and you're like, what was the difference? Was it the content? Was it the headline? Was it the photo? What have you found, if anything, why some things seem to take off and others don't?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that is almost like if you could systemize that and predict that, then everyone could make YouTube videos, right? So let me tell you something. Going back to that Streets of Fire video that I did, that was only seeing maybe 10 views a week for the first 3 months. I kept posting short videos here and there, and 5-10 minute videos, inconsistently, nothing crazy. But 3 months later, suddenly I'm noticing hundreds of people are watching that video every single day. And suddenly I'm at 20,000 views. Then I'm at 30,000 views, like a week later, 40, 50, and I'm getting all of these comments. And in that video, I asked a few of my friends, folks in my network, and I said, hey, you've seen the video. Tell me what it is that attracted you to the video. Well, first of all, the thumbnail is huge, right? So I designed that thumbnail, right? I took an extra hour to design that thumbnail. People are going to be blown away and be like, what? You took an hour to design a thumbnail? But if you don't have a really good thumbnail, especially for tribute videos, people are just going to be like, this is amateurish. I'm going to move on. I'm going to go to the next thing. So thumbnail is huge. The other thing is your title has to be really catchy. It needs to be clever. Like, think about this: 10 things you didn't know about Streets of Fire. Well, someone who knows about Streets of Fire is going to be like, well, what are the 10 things I didn't know? You didn't know. Do I not know these things? And maybe you knew 8 out of 10, but there's probably a couple of gems in there that you're going to learn about. And you want to be entertained, right? So you go in and you're going to watch the video. So thumbnail, video title, and I don't worry about hashtags all that much. I don't worry about keywords because, at this juncture, at this stage we're in, technology is so good. AI, YouTube has it down. Instagram has it down. Meta, all of these organizations, these platforms have it down. They know how to feed your videos to the right folks. And so for me, those are the two key things. And the third thing I think that differentiates is going to be the quality of your video, the creativity of it. Is it shot well? Is the audio good? Is the visual good? I didn't upgrade to a 4K camera until late last year. I didn't upgrade to the Shure MV7 Plus until earlier this year. All of my work has been shot on an iPhone using either the front camera or the back camera. And what I do is I try to be as clever as possible. I use apps like teleprompter. I try to use the resources that I can for free. I use CapCut sometimes to edit. I just upgraded recently to DaVinci Resolve to really have some in-depth ability to really work on my audio, because I feel like audio, like when I watch a video, I'm like, what do I not like about this video I'm watching? I'm like, the audio sucks. Mm-hmm. Or the footage is not clear. So I just try to be better, a little bit better each time I produce content. That's really the big thing. So there's no crystal ball on whether or not one video is going to take off or another. I've seen some wonderful videos that have fewer than 800 views, but they're fantastic. They give you great content. And I just think in time, keep producing, keep getting better a little bit at a time, and you can be very successful in the area that you're focused on.
What comes to mind when I hear that is, just as someone who was a journalism major, it's get it right. Get the story right, get the video right, get the audio right, get the editing right. Like, get it right instead of being in such a rush to get it out there. That's
Yes,
that's for Twitter. Like, get it right, get the
that's
thumbnail
right.
right, get the headline right.
Yeah,
Like, take your time to get it right is what I'm hearing here.
you nailed it. You
Yeah.
nailed it. And I think the audience will be forgiving to a certain extent. If you're like, I'll give you a quick example. When I was younger in my teens, I'd go to the comic book store and I'd pick up a book based on the cover art. But then I'd open it up and it was terrible storytelling. And I never wanted to read that book again. So the way I see it is, if your cover art's good, make sure your story matches the cover art. Make it as good as the cover. Like, don't underdeliver in the most important aspect of your content creation. Make sure it's good. Make sure the storytelling is good. Make sure it's clever, because the audience will forgive a crappy cover. Maybe your thumbnail isn't perfect, but if they go in and they like you and they like the content you're creating, it's clever, it's feeding their sense of entertainment or knowledge, they're learning something from it, they're going to forgive you for a little bit of noise, background noise on your audio, and maybe you're shooting in 720 p or whatever it is. They're going to forgive that. You know what I mean?
Let's talk big picture. Why does nostalgia matter? And why does nostalgia sell so well in popular culture? But in your mind, you had this phrase in your book: why do such fragments of our past hold such power over our present?
Yeah. I really do believe, and you'll see this every once in a while. I do use this tag. I'll just say this: nostalgia matters. And I really do believe that. And I believe that there's this, not only does it matter for my generation, Gen X, but I believe every generation has their fragments of nostalgia and their moments of nostalgia that are really important to them. And I will tell you why nostalgia matters. The bottom line is, while we live in the present and we have this outlook that we're putting in front of us for the future and we're preparing for that, the reality is we are a huge sum of what we have experienced in the past. And those shared experiences, in my opinion, are extremely are the connective tissue of a generation. And the reason why you can bring a community like on that 80s Dude together, or 80s Dude TV, is because of these shared memories, and because we had these experiences. It didn't matter if I grew up in Detroit and you grew up in California, Josh, right? Or in the West Coast. And so, but you and I probably watched, the A-Team. We probably watched Knight Rider. We grew up watching, eating Mr. T cereal or Gremlin cereal while we were watching, Masters of the Universe cartoons, or, the Smurfs, or whatever it is, And so that connective tissue, when you bring it all together, you can come together on common ground. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter. A lot of things just that are tangential don't really matter. What you end up having is the shared memories. You almost are like, you're literally brothers and sisters of shared memories, and that to me is so important. And I don't think we have to be careful here. I think that no one is saying you should just think about and wallow in the past because of you had good times. Like, I had a really rough life growing up. Do you think I reflect on that all the time? No, I think about the good things. I think about how much my dad, maybe he wasn't around, but he still loved us. We still were a family. We had a home. We made it work. Did I think about the bullying? Did I think about anything like that, or any adversity? Yeah, sure. Sometimes it crosses my mind, but I like to be the kind of person that takes out the positives and the good things that connect us. And I believe that the vast majority of people out there are like me. It doesn't matter their age. In fact, if you look at the fastest growing nostalgia base right now, it's millennials. They are now really absorbing all their nostalgia and really looking at even though it's a shorter period of time of distance away, even Zoomers are posting nostalgia. I mean, we're talking less than 20 years. Nostalgia is powerful. It matters because it brings us together. I think that's the most important part of it.
It's funny too, because I remember when I was growing up in the 80s and I would have older people doing nostalgic thoughts. And I was like, get over it, live in the, and here I am, you're right, doing the same thing. But for someone who's a college student now, or maybe for your kids, I think about the Macklemore song. Maybe these are the good old days, right? Like
Yeah.
what should someone young understand about remembering what they're doing now for what that's going to impact later in their life?
Wow. That's a great question, Josh. I believe that when we were growing up, we didn't think we were going to be looking back at our days. We were living in the moment. We didn't even realize how awesome it was to be able to hop on our BMX bikes and ride over to the Taco Bell and have Taco Bell and go right across to the comic book shop, peruse the aisles for hours, then go to the baseball card store, try to look for that Ken Griffey Jr. 1989 Upper Deck card. And then you didn't think about going to the arcades as something super special. You didn't think about going to see a movie, and then as soon as that movie was over, sneaking into another film. All those things were happening, and you were just enjoying that moment. And what I would love anybody to get out of this is enjoy the present, and certainly you don't need to look at it down the line and go, oh, this is going to be nostalgia or anything. We just don't, as human beings, we're not wired that way. But that being said, and when you do enjoy the present, I don't want to say treat it with reverence, but just know that the moments you are living right now are going to be the moments. Hopefully, they're good moments. I really hope that for everyone. And even the difficult ones and the challenging times, those are going to be the moments you're going to reflect back on, and you're going to take those and you're going to say, you know what did I learn from this? Or what sort of happiness can I draw from those simpler times or better times that were there for me? Maybe you are now immersed in a career, like for me, when I go and I'm going to have a meeting tomorrow, for example, with my team. And I have to let them know that the tariffs are challenging because we're sourcing these products from certain areas of the world, and we have to look at the costs, make the adjustments. How do we set up? How do we best prepare for U.S. Manufacturing operations? Are we behind these competitors? Are we going to be able to match or improve and beat them? Those moments are the moments are going to be the parts that maybe earn your income and they pay your bills and things like that. But when you ultimately sit back and you lay your head on the pillow and you sit back and relax and you're reading a book, hopefully, and enjoying some time with family, those are going to be the moments you reminisce on, and you're going to think, wow, I really had it. They're really with the less responsibilities, the more slowed down, slower pace that I had. Those were really quality life moments, and I really wish I would have appreciated more. But it's okay. At least you had those moments, is what I say.
Speaking of books, need to talk about your book before we wrap things up. It's called Nostalgia Nation, The Definitive Chronicle of Growing Up Gen X. Tell us about writing this book, when and where people can get it.
Thanks. Yeah. So listen, man, it's been a lifelong dream of mine to be an author and to put something out there in the world that is actually tangible and people can pick up and read. Obviously there's going to be e-readers, right? So
Right.
it's going to be those. That was a tough book to write. The idea came to me a couple of years ago. I put some ideas down in an outline. I usually start with outlines. And my life was very, obviously very busy, schedule wise. And I really didn't hit the ground running on the thing until about 6 or 7 months ago. I just thought, look, I'm going to hit my 5-year anniversary on social. I really need to have, I've always believed that if you are a content creator, you need to have your own product or your own service or something like that everybody else can come to and enjoy as something you've created that's outside of the realm of just daily content creation. And I thought, you know what? I really want to write a love letter to Generation X. And I want to synthesize a lot of the experiences that we had together and people are going to relate to, and just sort of take the writings that I've had, rework them to some degree to make them synthesize for a book, and then really produce something that I think and I hope that my generation is really going to love. And it was tough to come up with it because where do you start? There are so many incredible experiences and film and cartoons and just nostalgia, toys, snacks, commercials, things like that. But what I thought was, look, I'm just going to start to tell the story from what I experienced from nostalgia as a kid. Even though we were poor, we didn't have much, we still experienced great things and simpler times, and got to watch the Saturday morning cartoons and have the cereal, have generic cereals even. And I thought, let me start there. And then suddenly my outline began to improve. It got better. I started going in and thinking, oh, well, I need to touch on the holidays. They're very important to Gen X. And they're very important for every generation. So my outline began to expand to some degree, and I came up with about 20 chapters of really what I felt were a great collection and chronicle for Generation X. And that's how I built my book around that. And I'm super pumped. I can't wait for it to drop on June 3rd. It is currently on pre-order. If you have Amazon KDP Kindle, you can get it right off your phone. And I appreciate that. Anybody who wants to pre-order that, it really gives me a great motivation. And then I'm actually building out my ARC team, my advanced review team right now, which I think is essential. It's part of that whole behind the scenes of being an author that I'm learning about. But yeah, Josh, I'm super pumped about it. And I'm so happy that I have a community that has been built, that I've been able to build up around this and basically give them something. It's sort of, I priced also Nostalgia Nation in a way that's in accordance with what I felt is going to be very achievable for the majority of people. And I didn't want it to be like a $40, $50 book. I wanted it to be something under $20. Or if you're getting it on ebook, it's like $9.99. And then my audio is actually, I'm hoping to drop that sometime in the fall, right around the holidays. Yeah.
All right, John. I'm excited for you for this book. I know that when you sent me the advanced copy, I was nodding my head a lot and saying, me too. And I was saying like, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. So you made me smile. I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed this rad podcast. Thank you so much for telling us about your process. Once again, that was John Toma, also known as That 80s Dude. You can find him on Instagram, where over 550,000 people follow him. His handle, simply that_80s_dude. You can also read his work on Substack. You can also get a copy of his new upcoming book, Nostalgia Nation, the definitive chronicle of growing up Gen X. My name is Josh Suchon. I'm your host for the Where You At podcast. Appreciate you listening. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks for listening to the Where You At podcast. This is Devin Watley from the class of 2021. Thanks to Martine Marine for creating the music you're hearing right now, and Alex Piscatelli for her work on the podcast name and artwork on social media. And a reminder to SDSU alums, we really want to know where you're at. Tell us about your career. Get involved in the school. There's many ways you can do this, from donating your time or money, mentoring students, to even speaking in classrooms, in person, or on Zoom. Your work can help us grow the program and create more opportunities for our students to succeed. Again, thanks for listening. Subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. Recommend us a future guest. And go Aztecs.